Some people become funny when they drink. My dad became mean, very mean when he drank. He was just broken. He was broken and he was mean and he was not the kind of person that you would ever want to be around. He was a man that never thought God loved him. You know, he was a mess. The memories I have of those years are really the physical violence towards my mom.
I was afraid. I did what I was told, and that, you know, that was pretty much my life. I ended up with a concussion and in bed for 2 weeks because I couldn't see. I didn't go to the doctor, of course. I would be terrified to do that. That would have been it. I was afraid to tell anyone.
The one really vivid night that I remember when I was probably in second grade was my bedroom door was just right across the hall from my parents. And I heard my dad tell my mom to go out on the balcony and wait for him. When I opened my bedroom door to peek out, he was just across in his room loading his gun. And I was just staring at him and he looked at me and he said, you know, just go back to bed. You need to go back to bed. And so I did. Heard, I think it was actually 2 or 3 gunshots right after that. So we went into hiding. It was for quite some time. I actually don't remember exactly how long it was.
I decided I couldn't take it any longer. I just could not. And a girl that went to beauty school here, she said, Jess, let's do it. Let's get out of here. And so we snuck out one night and went over by, I think it was by Seattle somewhere.
During that time in hiding is when my dad really realized he was at the end of his rope and was just drinking and just trying to drown out all of the things in his life that just ate at him. Mr. Leon in the Moscow community was, you know, he wasn't the greatest guy. He was not nice most of the time, very serious, but he owned a beauty school, so students would come here, get their hair done. And so there were a few people from the Moscow Church of the Nazarene that would come in faithfully. Some of the pastors get their hair done, but in particular, there was a lady and her name was Thelma Gray. She knew that they weren't Christians or anything like that, but she would always tell my mom and my dad, you know, God loves you, Leon, and I'm praying for you. One of the very first couple weeks that we were gone, Thelma Gray had come in and said, hey, you know, once again, Leon, God loves you. And I think even a couple other people had come in during that time and said the Nazarene Church was having a weekly revival service. And this time he said yes. So he went by himself and, you know, walked down the altar and accepted Jesus into his heart. It was a miracle. He quit drinking and smoking overnight. God just healed him. He delivered him.
He was very loving, kind. It wasn't even the same person. Totally not the same person.
When I first saw my dad for the first time after we had come back from being in hiding, he had bought me this beautiful stuffed white Easter bunny and gave it to me and told me how much he loved me and asked our forgiveness. He was joyful and had a smile that I had never seen before. Ever since that day, his life changed.
He was one person one time and then 24 hours later, you know, it's just unreal.
Whoever would listen, he wanted to tell what God had done in his life because he had never felt love and joy like that.
You know, honestly, it seems like right after we became Christians, I mean, he wanted to tell the world. He couldn't stop. I mean, anybody that would come in, he would share with anyone.
Of course, people are asking him, wow, you know, you seem different. Oh, let me tell you why I'm different. And he would tell the whole story, you know, and he'd witness to them. And he would go around Moscow knocking on any door he could, sharing the gospel of Jesus. He was never intimidated by that. He was never fearful. He didn't care if somebody slammed the door in his face. They were going to hear the gospel of Jesus, you know. One of the very first things he got involved in was a children's bus ministry program.
Leon and Janice, they were both so hardworking and inviting families to send their children to Sunday school on those buses.
Whenever Leon was around, he smiled, he encouraged, he was welcoming, he was valuing people by his great big smile and warm embrace that said they mattered.
him. It was all about the Lord and about the church and about reaching families.
This is Blaine Manor Apartments, where my mom and dad and I lived for a while. After my dad came to know the Lord and was in the evangelism explosion program, he loved coming here and just going door to door and sharing the gospel. If people wouldn't have constantly, who came in, told my dad that God loved him, say they just never did that, the course of our life would have just changed dramatically. And now I have kids that are making a difference in the world, and an eternal difference, and have a kingdom perspective in mind.
And even after my husband passed away, the greatest joy I've had is being with them, watching them love the Lord, watching my kids, grow in the Lord, to see the legacy of my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. I mean, that is worth everything.
When my dad had accepted Jesus into his heart, he became a totally different person. People in the community would say, if Leon Cover became a Christian, anybody could become a Christian, because the difference was so night and day. It was like if you knew him before to then seeing him now, like it was just a radically changed life. The most radically changed life that I've ever seen.